What happened?
Oh, no, I was comparing that to something.
Well, I think it's needed because
To one of the prior letters we got regarding the disclosures. The value of the trip.
Oh, that's going to be a quick meeting.
Yeah, very quick. Especially with the chief not wanting.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would go ahead and take your seats, please.
Look at you.
How are you doing? Appreciate you being here this evening and welcome. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Directors of Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District, dated Thursday, March 13, 2015. We will begin this meeting as we normally do with a pledge to the American flag. Director Wood, will you lead us?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Wood. This open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14 to be replayed on Saturday, August 15, 2015 at 1 p.m. in the afternoon and Monday, August 17, 2015 at noon on Channel 14, webcast at www.sacramentrocable.tv. The open session meeting is also available for viewing on the district's website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. At this time, Madam Clerk, do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers this evening.
There are no speakers this evening. Okay. We'll now move on to our consent items. I'll entertain a motion for adoption of consent.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Thank you, ma'am. I have a first and a second. Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll on consent.
Director Monk?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Scheidegger?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Barnes?
Aye.
And Gould?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate us all being attentive. We're moving on now into action items, of which we have none. So that was a quick one. We'll move on now to President's reports. Ladies and gentlemen, I just have a very short comment relative to the work that our men and women do every day. I got a frantic phone call here just a few, yesterday in fact, of a colleague or a friend of ours that was involved in a very serious auto accident. And that always gets you nervous. And yet today, when we had a chance to talk to the family, the patient didn't want to talk about her pretty serious injuries. She wanted to talk about the men and women at Station 21 and what wonderful work they did to take care of her. And so that's all she wanted to talk about, not about how badly she was injured in the ICU and all those things. She just went on and on talking to the family about how wonderful our crews are. And, as I drove here tonight, I thought, that goes on all day, every day of every year. And it's just, I think it's important that we realize that the men and women and the staff and everyone associated with Metro Fire is working their tails off to do good things. And I just want to thank everyone that does that gets up every day, whether you put on the uniform or not, and you come to work every day and you do good things. It all goes back to, here's a woman who was seriously injured in an accident, and the only thing she wanted to do is talk about what wonderful service she received. And so I just want to thank, as the president of this board, I want to thank everyone that supports that from every level of our organization. Because as I hung up the phone with that experience, it just really reinvigorated just what a wonderful place and what a great organization Sac Metro Fire is. So thank you. And it's an honor to be associated with all of you. It's an honor. With that, I'll move on to the chief's report. Chief Wells.
Thank you, Director Gould. Mark Wells, Fire Chief, obviously. Tonight I would like to start off kind of on a somber note. And I would like to reach out and, as Metro Fire, and the condolences to the families of the U.S. Forest Service firefighters that have lost their lives in the last few weeks. Specifically, we had a young 21-year-old U.S. Forest Service firefighter, Michael Hallenbeck, 21 years old, of Shingle Springs, California. And he served in the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit, and he died on August 8th from injuries sustained while battling the Sierra Fire in El Dorado County. And then, unfortunately, we had, prior to that, on July 30th, firefighter Dave Rule died on the Frog Fire, which was up in the Modoc National Forest. And he was actually from South Dakota, out here with the U.S. Forest Service. So, you know, it's with a heavy heart that we reach out to those families. I'd like to thank also all the fire service that welcomed firefighter Hallenbach today back, including Metro Crews, honoring as they came across over the top of the pass over there, doing the overcrossings and the salutes, and to honor the family, because absolutely as a 21-year-old, at any point it's never the right time, but clearly at the very beginning of his life, and so we wanted to honor that. So tonight I would ask at the end of our meeting if we could have a moment of silence, honoring those two brave men for their sacrifice. So then, moving on, I wanted to say that we are continuing our weekly, or pretty close to weekly, senior management videos, and we had a couple that were posted on July 24th and the 31st from AC Lozano and AC Savage, respectively, so hopefully you're getting a chance to see those. The intent of that is to have it's not two-way communication, clearly, but it is a forum that we can reach out, give our message, and hopefully get some feedback in between through our anonymous venues and not so anonymous if they want to call and ask a question. But I think it's good, and it's building this, hopefully, a communication network that's more robust than it has in the past. And there'll be another one coming out that I've done, moving on in this sequence that we're trying to get more information out. Let's see. Some meetings. Well, I'd like to actually congratulate the Single Role Academy Class 15-2. On the 31st of July, we had 18 recruits who graduated. And just as a note of reference here, we had 51 single roles have actually, from that program, transitioned into our firefighting ranks over time, so which is great. And then, of course, immediately thereafter, we started a firefighter academy, because we're running them pretty much nonstop. And that started 15-2 with 45 recruits. Whoa. And 18 of those were single roles, and 27 of them were external candidates. One of the things to understand from a budgeting standpoint, we had intended to have 55 in our first academy, and there's a lot of reasons why that doesn't come to fruition, but really at the end of time, the surge for hiring is pretty extreme across the state of California right now. Lost a lot of people at the last moments in the process where you don't have the lag time to bring any more in, and so that number of 55 that you might have heard will then be moved to the second half of the year for the second academy, and we'll hope to meet that goal. I spoke at the Orangevale Rotary on the 7th of August, last Friday, and that was a good conversation with constituents out there and the business community and the Rotary Club. I don't know if any of you know, but my dad was a Rotarian, so I always enjoy going out to those. On the 10th, we were out at the Watt Avenue Public Improvement District celebration, and I'd like to thank Director Clark, who was there, and of course Larry Davis and myself. Good showing. Had a lot of good conversation with the business owners out there that really spearheaded that project, and quite frankly, it's going to improve that area a lot and bring hopefully some needed improvements to the district. I was on KFBK yesterday on the 12th, and that'll be an ongoing deal. It is actually, I believe, the second Wednesday of every month, and it's at 8:10 in the morning. So I got a face for radio, so it's finally working out for me there. We met today, actually, myself, Amanda Thomas, the CFO, and Chief Holbrook, and we met with Teresa Matista from the Los Rios Community College District. And it was an interesting discussion about how they do their budgets and how they talk about labor and different things. And I think it kind of reaches out. We had the introduction through Director Orzali. But we're interested in knowing how other people in not a similar or not a like agency does things, so that we might be able to learn in how they do things. And some things are relative and some aren't, but always good ideas to share. On August 26th at 10 o'clock at Station 32 up on Hazel Avenue, we are doing another town hall meeting. Senior staff will be up there for live back and forth dialogue. And also, I'd like to report out that we are going a small contingent, myself, Chief Bridge, Chief Savage, and Captain Beard, who is our fire control expert that does our control burns. We're going to Fort Worth, Dallas area to look at the 2 training towers that are new and innovative in the fire training props, so that we can come back and have a better idea of what it is that we want to provide to the men and women of Metro Fire on our burn tower that we're going to build at Zinfandel. So that'll be happening next week. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the new hires of Fire Inspector 1 Tim Mangum, and that was effective on the 21st of July. Effective the 27th of July was our new communications manager, Scott Andrews, and on the 11th of August, Administrative Specialist in Community Risk Reduction, Jennifer Gannon, who has actually been working with us in the Human Resources Division part-time or temporarily, and excellent. So a lot of new, very talented blood coming into the organization, so we're happy to see that. And last, I'd like to talk about, we had a very good budget meeting it was the final meeting of the budget managers for the proposed final budget that'll be coming to the Finance Committee next meeting, and then the meeting hopefully to be approved by the first meeting in September in the final budget. So we sat down in this very room, about 35 to 40 people. I appreciated Director Orzali and Director Scheidegger, as well as the executive leadership from Labor, all the budget managers who were in the room. And we're implementing a couple, or actually 4 different processes, so that the budgets as we go along are going to even be more streamlined, efficient, transparent, predictable, and more accurate, so that we can deliver numbers to policymakers in a fashion. Now, understanding the budget process is always going to be plus or minus based on you're basing it on the best known information at the time you make the budget. But one of the interesting things will be that the budget officers every month will get a budget to actual, and they will be looking at those to track their budgets in real time. And then quarterly, they'll be meeting with the oversight of their division, and they'll be informing those numbers to the budget as they go. If you'll understand in the past that we would typically wait until mid-year to make certain adjustments. And of course, mid-year for us, by the time we get the numbers from the county, you're really looking at about February. So you don't have enough time in a budget to really react in 3 or 4 months, or well, you could, but not as much efficiency. So I think that's going to improve that process. And also we're going to be looking at the budgets based on 3-year actuals instead of comparing predictions from last year to predictions this year. It's going to be actuals, and then a better understanding about what the actual numbers are as they go into the budget process. So we're looking forward to those improvements, and I think that system under the tutelage of our new CFO, Amanda Thomas, and all the executive staff has worked very hard in the last number of months or weeks to month to get this process moving forward. I don't want to get too far into a preliminary budget that we discussed yesterday. I want to serve the board of directors correctly, going through the proper channels as far as the finance committee will see it first. But we are looking for some improvements in service, keeping a safer truck potentially, and opening an engine company. And so we're looking forward to doing that, and I know that our partners in labor, we're collaborating with them along the way, and so it should be a good process as we move forward. So I'd be glad to ask or answer any questions that you might have about any of those topics. Otherwise, that concludes my report.
Any questions? And Chief, I think we have one more item that you need to take a quick look at before we move on.
Oh, okay. I would like to, longtime paramedic Rob Koch of AMR passed away in a tragic accident a week ago. A lot of our paramedics knew him, and certainly we would want to, our partners in the emergency medical services, as we provide services out there, our hearts and prayers go out to him and his family. So certainly want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
We'll include that as part of our closing. Thank you, Chief. All right, next we have AC Bridge.
Looking good, though.
Wait, let him.
There we go. I think
There
we're
we
good
go.
now. All right, good evening, directors, President Gould, Chief Wells. I have some operation notes for you. Since our last board meeting on July 23rd, okay, we've had a total number of calls for service of 5,236, of which 11 of those were structure fires and 50 of those were vegetation fires. Our EMS side of things, we've had just about 3,700 dispatches, and about approximately 73% of those resulted in a transport. Moving on to a couple other notes for our deployments. Currently, we have approximately 40 personnel deployed throughout California on overhead assignments, of which approximately 24 of those are on our Type 3 engines. So we have them scattered throughout the South Complex and the Shasta Trinity. Most of our personnel, 15 of them to be exact, are at the Jerusalem Fire in Lake County. And then we have them at the River Complex, which is in Shasta. The Fort Complex is in Shasta Trinity as well. And then the Humboldt Lightning Fires, Humboldt County. And if I'm saying it correctly, we have a couple personnel at the Gasquet Complex. Am I saying that correctly for any Forest Service folks?
Sure.
All right, looks good. So anyway, our folks have been out for a while and doing a good job for us, and we're backfilling the stations nicely with that and keeping our stations well staffed. A couple of public information notes. We had a notable save. The Truck 65 folks saved a fawn stuck in a fence. Those seem to be popular with the folks out there. It was kind of a nice save on their part. Also, keeping it in that same realm, we had Engine 61 made national news with the rescue of a kitten in a storm drain. Then we have one of our fine young firefighters, paramedics, Terrence Manley, also very fluent in Spanish, joined the Univision anchor and Cal Fire in a studio talk about wildland fires last week, which aired statewide. So with that, we have another one too, Jeff Malinowski, for those of you who know him. He's very fluent in Spanish, took a Univision reporter on a ride-along, and they had a great story that aired in Spanish on Univision last week as well. And then upcoming events. Let's see. And I'm not sure if that's a typo or if that's how we say that. So I think Hot August Bites, is that what they're calling it?
Yeah, we're still calling it that, yes.
Okay.
Until the next news story.
I had to check myself for sure, because
Obviously.
I go, somebody set me up for this, I know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking that's still the case.
I think so. So we're expecting about 2,500 people at Rush Park between 4 and 8 p.m. This Saturday night. The following weekend, Rosemont Celebration of Community from 9:30 to 2 o'clock. They expect about 1,500 people there as well. Our total local viewership for the month of July totaled 5,436,145. That equates to a total local market publicity value of just under $1.5 million. So with that concludes operations report, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Chief Bridge? Chief Bridge, without violating HIPAA, you want to give us an update?
Sure, I'd be happy to. In my foolishness, the brain thinks I'm 17, but my leg reminded me, my hamstring specifically, that I'm not. And I tried to beat out a ground ball in a softball game, which we were winning 17-0 at the time. So I now will be seeing an orthopedic next week, so I'm
Thank
happy
you.
to share all that, and I'll give you more
Appreciate it.
results when I get back.
And the sad
Thank you very
part, at
much.
this level, you still have to come to work.
Yeah. Yeah, good call to have him present. Make him walk on his ripped hamstring. All right, with that, we'll move on. I'm assuming that Council Lawver, we have no report at this time?
No report.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to committee and delegate reports. We have no report from the executive committee. Chief Holbrook on the comm center? I have no report. Thank you. Director Kelly on CAL FIRE Rescue Training JPA.
Yes, the Fire Rescue Training JPA has a meeting scheduled for early September. They have yet to decide whether it will be the 10th or the 24th, and I'm keep you abreast as I see emails come through.
Thank you, Director. Director Monk, Finance.
No report from finance. The next meeting is August 27th at 5 p.m.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Scheidegger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Policy Committee did meet tonight. We had a presentation item from Melissa Maddox talking about minor changes to the sick leave policy, primarily comporting to AB 1522. We also had an action item concerning the policy change that was given by Ms. Pania on requests for information when made by directors. This was approved and will move on to the full board for approval very soon. And I think it's going to provide good clarity and information in terms of how this procedure will go. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 10th. I'm going to be in Iceland, so Director Barnes will be chairing that one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Scheidegger. Chief, why don't you go ahead and make a public comment relative to the closed session and that we won't be having it?
Oh, yes. Actually, we just decided this evening, we put the closed session items on there if they're, because it's in advance because of the Brown Act. We have nothing further to report tonight in closed session, so we'll be canceling that.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. We'll now move to board members' questions and comments. I'll start with our esteemed colleague, Director Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have not much to report except for just reminding the communities, as all agencies are participating in the mutual aid relief, it puts a strain on the resources internally. So be patient when they show up and be thankful they show up, but also be respectful of the work that they do in the timely manner that they do. So it's because of what they do. It's a first-class organization. I say it every time because I truly believe it, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you, Director. Director Jones?
Ditto to Director Barnes.
Thank you. Director Kelly?
I have a couple of things. I have noticed a lot of people who smoke cigarettes lately throwing their cigarette butts out the car window when they're at either a stoplight or driving down the road. And I'd like somebody, maybe from this organization, we have law enforcement to my left. This is a offense that is punishable by fine or what have you, right? That's correct. So not to mention the fact that with the drought conditions that exist in this great state of ours, I would imagine the majority of them are caused by careless acts like that. So I would want to remind the public that may be watching that if you do smoke, utilize the ashtray that is inside your car. The rest of the world that we walk around in is not your ashtray. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Monk?
I want to take the opportunity to thank the taxpayers from Rio Linda and my area out in District 1 for their support of me on this board for the last 5 years. And I'm taking this opportunity to advise this board and the public that my term as director for District 1 ends tonight. I have purchased a new home and am moving out of the district to another county and can no longer be eligible to serve as a director. So a couple people on the board would probably appreciate that, but I appreciated being a representative for the taxpayers out there, and I hope whoever fills my boots will represent the taxpayers as well as I've tried to. So, thank you.
Okay. Director Monk, thank you for your service, and there'll be more to come, I'm sure. We'll move on to Delman Clark. Director Clark.
I have nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Wood?
I just would echo Mr. Barnes' comments, Director Barnes' comments. Also want to just ask or thank Melissa for giving us the fire camp letters that we got. All of them talk about what a wonderful experience it has been for them and their families, and sing great praises of all the work that Brenda and her crew do. I would just ask, I know since we don't have this policy yet, I can ask staff, if we could get the authority to publish these, it would be great to have some testimonials on the website about fire camp. I think that would be a wonderful thing. Brenda deserves a lot of recognition for what she's done every year to get that program so well. And with that, I would just say it's been a pleasure, Gary.
Thank you. Director Scheidegger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to comment, the chief alluded to the budget meeting that occurred yesterday. I did have the pleasure of sitting in on that. And I want the public to be aware of what goes on around here and how business is conducted. What I saw as a former manager in government, is a fantastic process for the budget. And first of all, senior management was there, labor was there, which was good. But what was really neat is about 35 or 40 people sat in a room and all had to take a vested interest in their budget. It's not going to be a question around here where somebody can say down the road, well, who did that to me? How did that happen? Because every senior manager in this organization participated in the process. And I want to commend you, Chief, and your team for how you go about this critical process, establishing a budget. I thought it was an excellent exercise, and I thank you for allowing me to sit in on it. Last, I'd like to say good luck, Gary. I hope your move goes well for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Scheidegger. And finally, I'd like to, again, on behalf of the board, thank Director Monk for his years of service to this board. And as he mentioned, it'll be big boots to fill, and we'll have a hard time doing that as we move and look into the Rio Linda community for that replacement. And that'll be a big job. It's obviously with great humility tonight that we finish our work of the board this evening in a moment of silence as we remember the fallen who have left us, our colleague at AMR, as well as the 2 firefighters that have died fighting our state fires. And also, and equally important, remember their surviving family members at this time. So with that, we'll close with a moment of silence. This meeting is adjourned.
Not a word.